Welcome to bettingodds.com, and this is our series Beating the Bookie. I'm joined by Daniel today, who managed to bag himself an incredible £74,000 off just a £20 stake at the Cheltenham Festival last week. Hiya, Daniel.
Yeah.
Nice to speak to you today. First up, tell us what bets you placed and when you placed them.
So the bet in particular, the winning treble, I placed back in September of 2020. It was an each-way treble on Bob Ollinger, Sir Gerhard and Chantry House. The original stake was £10 each way. And I think at the time they were 25 to 1 each, and then Chantry House was 20 to 1 when I placed the bet.
Excellent. And what attracted you to those three horses, and why did you fancy them for those races as such at the festival?
Bob Ollinger was a bumper horse the previous season who didn't actually run at Cheltenham, which I quite often like that angle for novice hurdlers. But he ran in a race, I think it was at Goran Park, and he was very impressive. He'd also come from the point-to-point scene, which is usually a good indicator as well. And yeah, he just looked like he had a good blend of speed and stamina, and that was the leaning towards the Ballymore hurdle for him. Sir Gerhard was probably one which was maybe a bit more of a punt, because he was come out of the point-to-point circuit, and therefore, he was running in bumpers this year. I actually originally thought he would go hurdling and skip bumpers completely. But once the news was out that he was going to run in bumpers, I was like, right, okay, he's definitely going in there. And then the third one was Chantry House. Now, when I placed the bet, there was still a bit of debate over what trip Envoy Alain was going to go for. And I thought Chantry House would be much better over fences anyway. And with the doubts around Envoy Alain possibly going up in trip, I thought it was a decent enough price to take that position that early on in the season. So that's where they all started off. And as I say, the original bet was £10 each way.
Yes, and I believe you managed to do a bit of a partial cash out before the festival, didn't you, Daniel?
Yeah, so I do actually. I mean, I bet a lot on anti-post, but it's more for a bit of entertainment, really. It's sort of, I look at it as trying to land the life changer bet, and so I don't bet lots on anti-post. I sort of just find horses that I like, and then try and get them to the festival. I had a few other bets which either had injured horses or horses that didn't prove good enough, but that was a particular one. Now, when I got to December, so at this point, Envoy Alain was now looking like he was going to run in the same race as Chantry House. Also, Chantry House ran a bit of a stinker in December as well. So I was looking through all of my bets, and I looked at that one and I thought, well, there was a bit of liquidity in the bet. So I thought I'd half the stake, and then I took out some money that I could then reinvest in some other bets, which in hindsight, I wish I never cashed that out, because that cost me another 75 grand. But it did help me place some other bets, and overall, apart from this particular one that won, I think I had about another 2.8k of wins from each way trebles, where only the place part came up. So I think I had about four trebles come in total. One of them was the full win part, and 3 of them were the each way parts that counted for the extra 2.8k as well.
Excellent. So let's fast forward to Wednesday last week. how were you feeling? Obviously, we had two brilliant performances there from Sir Gerhard. The Wednesday night, we bet 365 off your cash out that you were tempted by. How were you feeling at that point?
Well, I was actually quite fortunate that Bet365 had removed the concession part of the cash out anyway, so that wasn't available. So yeah, I was just letting it run, and then yeah, that's where we got to. It was a case of it had to roll the dice, and the sort of the morning of that race, yeah, I mean, I was like everybody else in that follows racing, probably looking at it thinking,
And by
yeah, very unlikely. All he's got to do is stand up, and but as they say, you've got to jump the fences. So yeah.
How many short prices have we seen be beat at the festival?
That is true. That is true. Yeah. The more worrying thing for me actually was after he did fall, and then I was like, this has got a bit interesting. And Chantry House, to be fair, for sort of half the race wasn't going great and jumping that fluently either, but sort of as soon as they started to go up the hill, and then when they were coming down again, he then started to jump a lot better. And as soon as he was sort of upsides in the home straight, I knew he would, at that point, as long as he, again, didn't make any errors, he should stay on up the hill and win it.
And did you have any big celebrations last Thursday?
Well, I was actually working on the Friday, so and with all the lockdowns and everything, it's just a bit of a nightmare. So we've had a bit of champagne and that. I've got a young daughter as well who, dealing with her on hangovers, not the best of things either. So yeah, I think I'm gonna, probably the big celebrations, I will hold until the world's back to normal. I've got a belated birthday as well that I'll celebrate. So yeah, we'll do it properly when we can, really, rather than sort of trying to muster something together now.
Brilliant. Sounds brilliant, Daniel. Is there anything else that you've got your eye on with the winnings that you're going to spend it
on? Again, if the world was back to normal, then there probably would be a few different things, holidays and so forth. But for now, it's probably just a case of try and keep the wife's hands off it in the meantime, and yeah, look at what to do with it. It is, obviously it's not a small amount of money, so I'd like to try and do something where there was a bit of fun element to it, but obviously with a young family as well, you need to sort of think about the future a bit as well. I'm not sure if I'll be able to go as crazy enough as to maybe get a small share in a horse or something like that. I'll let the dust settle.
Excellent, because I know that was the response of the man who managed to bag himself. I think it was just over £250,000, wasn't it?
That's right, and I could only imagine after watching that race, he probably felt very glad he took the cash out, and I think it was a no-brainer. I don't know anybody that wouldn't have taken the 250K, which was very, very good offer. But it's one of those, really. I mean, his amount of money, he could obviously, maybe even get a full horse, but I think on the amount that I've got and what I would sort of use for play money in that respect, might look at a share or something like that, and have some enjoyment out of it, because it's not really something you can make money out of. But yeah, well, as I say, for now it's sort of let the dust settle a bit and work it all out.
Excellent. And my last questions for you today are around next year's festival. And I was wondering if you had any anti-posts lined up, but there's one horse in particular I'd like to ask you about, and that's Fernie Hollow. And I think you mentioned a race at Gowran earlier in this video. And was that the race that Fernie Hollow ran in?
No, that was so Bob Ollinger did run against Fernie Hollow over hurdles this year. That was October time, I think. And looking back at it now, the fact that Fernie Hollow beat him, you'd have to look at that race and the form. And obviously, Fernie Hollow also won the bumper the year before, and you'd have to think that he's probably a serious horse. What toll the injury will take on him, I'm not entirely sure, because he obviously missed the rest of the season now, Fernie Hollow. So he's a tough one, because he could have the option of going novice chasing, or they could keep him over hurdles and maybe look at the champion hurdle. So from a personal perspective, at least right now, given everything I know, I probably wouldn't be backing Fernie Hollow, because you've got sort of quite a few options there that he could end up running in. And I try to keep my bets to horses where you know which discipline they're going to be running over, whether it's fences, bumpers, or hurdles. And then at least you've only got to get the race right out of that. It's trying to get the race and the discipline right, you're just throwing too many variables into the mix. So and a lot of that will be, you probably won't find out a lot of it unless he runs at Punchestown, which is a few more weeks away, which again, I'm not sure. I've heard that he will be running. You're then waiting for information to come through probably until next autumn, beginning of the season, when you get the sort of stable tours are released, and you can find out a bit more information whether he'll stay hurdling or chasing. But as I say, I'd be waiting until I knew that before I placed any bets on him.
And with anti-post punting, do you kind of have any personal rules? We all know it can be a bit of a minefield at times. And do you try to always take things above a certain price, or would you be more willing to say back a honeysuckle for next year's champion hurdle, something like that?
Yeah, because I am only really, as I say, I do it for a bit of fun. I mean, I take it seriously in the sense that I know the horses, and I have a genuine opinion of where I think they're running, but I don't lay out lots of money, and therefore I do try to, as I say, go for that sort of life-changing bet. So I would invariably be looking at sort of 16-1 minimum, because I like to do those trebles sort of each way, so that at least, if you do get the right races and they do prove good enough, and you then, looking at them getting placed, and you're still going to get a nice enough return. So yeah, it would be sort of 16-1 probably and above. As we got closer to the festival and I knew some targets were locked in, I might sort of then go down to sort of 10 or 12-1, but anything below that, I'd rather wait until closer to the time, and all right, you're going to take a shorter price, but at least you're going to get a run for your money.
Excellent. And are there any horses who you've had a punt on for next year's festival?
I haven't had an actual bet yet, but I'm starting the process now. So I keep a short list throughout the season anyway, which will be for whether it's looking at the bump horses who will then go novice hurdling, or the novice hurdlers that will go novice chasing. I'll be looking at those horses throughout the season, and it doesn't worry me if some of them don't run at Cheltenham. Sometimes the good bump horses, Bob Ollinger was a good example. He didn't run in the Cheltenham bumper the previous year, and he's probably been one of the most impressive winners of the week. So I don't worry if they missed the festival, as long as it was not necessarily through injury. So I've got a sort of a short list. I mean, it's quite lengthy, and I'll probably whittle it down and work out, you know, some bets, and I'll perm some of them up as well, which is what I did this year. Hence why I had the other bets, which also paid on the place part as well, because they were permed with some other horses that didn't win. So yeah, there's a fair few. I mean, the list will be fairly sizable, but then I'll gradually over the summer whittle it down a bit.
Excellent. Well, that's about it for today. And thanks very much for joining us, Daniel. I think we've heard some wise words there, and congratulations again on winning £74,000. Brilliant, off just a £20 stake.
No, it's as I say, it was a strange one, because I did genuinely that morning think, yeah, just get in the first three, get me. I think it was paying about £1,000 for the place part, and I thought that'll do. You know, that'll you know, keep me happy. So yeah, and you know, I've seen lots of others. I mean, I'm not sure. Am I allowed to plug anything whilst I'm on here?
Yeah, go for it.
There is a website which I use and sort of read a lot of information on as well, called Fat Jockey, which is probably one of the best sources of information that you can get out there. So I would advise anybody that does watch this video, if you like your horse racing, it's a fantastic source of information, and you'll see a lot of people that have been very successful in there. In fact, you may not have picked up on it, but there was actually a guy that had a even larger win than me on the forum. Actually, he had a 4-fold come in. So yeah, that would be my tip for it.
Was that around £100,000 off the £2?
That's the one, yeah.
I think I've come across that. All these winners, and I've spent the week waiting for £10 back off Sky Bet myself. It's been a funny old week. Yeah,
it has, and you know, it sort of comes and goes pretty quickly, and then as I say, as soon as that last race, was it the Martin Pike now? As soon as that's done, you sort of immediately switch on to, right, okay, what are we looking for next year? And you know, I've sort of got a few that I'm very keen on as a horse, and some of the runners actually, I think I quite like that we're out of the Gordon Elliott stable. Whether the owners will stay there, I know some of them moved, some of them have sort of stayed loyal to him. Maybe that was just for Cheltenham. I don't know what their long-term plans will be, but certainly there's a couple there. In fact, I think the owners of Bob Ollinger could have one for the same race next year, called Jerry Colomb, for the Ballymore. He's was with Gordon Elliott. I'm not sure if they're staying loyal to him. So yeah, hopefully Lightning will strike twice for them next year, because he's sort of the one that stands out for me at the moment, I think, as my sort of initial bet that I might build around various multiples. Excellent. Thanks very much for that, Daniel. And I think we're going to wrap it up there for today, if that's all good. Yeah, no, that's fine.